Welcome back, everybody, to the 2022 League of Legends College Championship. I am still Dylan MLBD, joined by TJ, and we're still joined by the lovely Coach Tyler. Wow, crazy couple of series so far. I mean, it really is hard to sort of decompress with not too much of a break between those games. I mean, just back-to-back 3-game series, and we're firing it right up into the final series of the day. And arguably the most exciting. I mean, can it get more exciting? We've had 2 3-game series, but both of these teams in this final one are so good. For anybody who's not caught up, we will be streaming Illinois State University Redbirds versus UT Austin, the Longhorns. And I mean, this just has so much potential, right? Looking just at these rosters on paper, you've got ISU, who's one of the strongest CLOL teams. A lot of people think that they're going to make a deep run. And then you've got UT Austin, who's one of these teams that, like, maybe not a lot of people know about them, but they've got some really cool players, right? So let's start our conversation with ISU and then go into UT Austin. TJ, what are some of your thoughts about ISU as a team? Because I know you're very familiar with them.
Well, ISU is literally right down the road from us, so I'm always excited to watch them play. I'm especially excited to watch DrewDozer. I think that he's made a lot of improvements over the past years, really, in amateur, really expanding his champion pool. He says he will play any champion that looks good in the game. Any champion. So if it's
That's hype.
Darius mid, it's Darius mid. If it's Anivia, it's Anivia. So I think that always is very interesting to watch. And I wish more players would kind of have that ego about it, right? Like, I will just be better than you. You got to back it up, of course, and he tends to do that. But he's definitely my player to watch for this series, and that's not to say he doesn't have other teammates around him. You have other very exciting players like Nausicääa, who obviously played in the OPL, and that's always exciting. So it should be a fun game to watch from ISU's perspective. I know that they played, like I said, a ton of things, and I'm hoping that they deliver as exciting of a series as they do, or as the past ones.
Yeah, ISU, if anyone's been like a big ISU fan in the chat, these games, they're known for being very bloody. ISU likes to take the game super late. They like to go for every skirmish, every fight, just draw it out as much as possible, like 60 kill, 70 kill games. ISU will always try and take you late game. They tend to have this team identity where they're going to play for scaling. They're most likely going to play, tank top, DrewDozer on a mage carry, or like even like a Karma or some sort of like supportive mid that they just want to like hard scale with into the late game. ISU love to play these drawn out fights where they get to try and outfight you in the late game, and they will battle to the brink of death to try and get that far and to make it go late. So ISU games are really fun to watch, in my opinion. They're probably one of the most fun games to watch in collegiate. Back behind like old Bethany when they would play like weird stuff and Bradley would just hard carry, like that was fun to watch too. But I think ISU are just very, very fun team to watch play.
I mean, that's music to my ears, man, because we've had 6 games of relatively standard stuff. And look at this tweet from Tempos. I had no idea production would be pulling this up. Oh my god, the BM. Is he even starting in this series? I don't know. I think he's still sitting on the bench, but I love it. I mean, still time to FF and drive down to Houston to catch the finals. Little bit of banter.
It's a banger
I mean, you
tweet.
love to see it. It's a banger tweet, right? It's a banger tweet. You love to see that. That's why I love collegiate, man. I mean, these players are not afraid to throw shade around. And it is funny coming from the one of the support who's not even starting on ISU, but we're not going to talk about that, of course. We're not going to mention that part. But I mean, I love what you bring up, Tyler, there, because those are the kind of games I want to watch, right? I want to watch those exciting, bloody games with nice, fun champion picks where the teams are just fighting back and forth and just scrappy games all around. So I'm looking forward to see what ISU drafts this game. But shifting our focus to UT Austin, a team that admittedly we know a little bit less about, we're less familiar with, but I still think is going to be very exciting to watch in round 32. TJ, what are your thoughts, sort of, just looking at this roster as a whole?
Well, when looking at some of the stuff they played previously, they also played some pretty wacky things. We're not sure how much to attribute to like early CLOL speedrunning, but they played an Ivern Rengar, they played Heimerdinger. They had some interesting jungle picks like Trundle, which isn't like interesting, but it's something where it shows that your jungler is willing to like maybe pick something that's a little more backseating. And I think that's always super respectable. So that again causes some problems in draft where it's like, okay, I guess we just can't pick the any mid 2v2s if they're just going to pick Rengar, especially with how broken he is now with the buffs. Maybe Jinx Arcane gets nerfed because of a Trundle pick potentially, or maybe it forces a Thresh out for a Jarvan. You never really know. So I'm excited to see where they go, because I think they're definitely the underdogs. And again, when you're the underdog, you kind of have two big options: either pick scaling and pray, or go crazy with something like that just nobody plays against.
Yeah, so I've gotten the opportunity, mostly while you guys are talking, to do a little bit of scouting on UT Austin,
Ooh.
because I know we don't know all that much about UT Austin and the Longhorns, but I will say these guys play some. Tia said they play some fun champions. They play some really fun champions. Like they play like Heimerdinger bottom. These guys play Zed mid, Yone mid. They play like
Whew.
the Ivan Rengar that they played. It's like Ivan's top and the Rengar's jungle. Like these guys do all sorts of stuff. They play Sona Misfortune. There's so many cool ways they can go about doing their draft because of how unique they try to play the game, and that could be one way that they could have a chance against ISU. ISU is a heavy favorite in probably all of our opinion. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but I think if UT Austin can kind of throw them off their game, play some unique picks, I really hope they play Zed. I think Zed mid is really really strong, but I'm sure it's right up DrewDozer's alley too because he plays some weird champions as well. I think it's going to be really fun to see what happens in this mid lane, especially.
Well, if there is a Zed mid, DrewDozer, like I said, he will pick anything, and that means I'm looking for a Malphite mid into the Zed.
TJ, if you didn't say it, I was gonna throw it to you and say it. I mean, it's just I expect to see some amazing picks this series, and I for one definitely think that TJ is going to be very happy because there's no way we get standard League of Legends picks throughout the entire series. There has to be something, right? I mean, these guys play such wonky, weird stuff that there's got to be something, right? Give me a Vayne top from Disconnector. You know, give me something fun to watch. I don't know. Tyler, what are you thinking?
I don't know if Disconnector will be the one to whip out some weird champions, although he is like he used to play AD carry, right? I'm pretty sure he was an AD carry main before that. But I know that like I'm pretty sure Wukong will be a really heavily contested pick among both these teams. It looks like both junglers play it a decent amount, and I can only imagine the weird flexes that UT Austin will try and do with some of these champions. Maybe Kha'Zix as well. They play a lot of Kha'Zix jungle too, so I think it's going to be so exciting to see the champions as you mentioned.
It's just going to be amazing. I mean, so much to look forward to with these drafts. So much to look forward to with the actual gameplay itself, right? Two bloody teams that are willing to duke it out. And when you have those weird champion picks, TJ, you're always somebody that's always saying, you know, you don't know how to react to something you've never played against before. You know, how many games do you have against Malphite mid or something like that, you know? So it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got about 2 minutes before we dive into these games, just enough time for some predictions. TJ, let's start with you. Let's hear your thoughts about this series.
So I think I have to go to ISU because they're our crosstown rival, and I just have to support the Blonos, the Blono members. So definitely gonna go with the 2-0 with ISU. However, with that in mind, I know ISU has had some lacking performances sometimes when they go against some teams that are maybe a little bit better, and so there is potential that there's a throw in there. I would kind of doubt it, but it's collegiate League of Legends, as we've seen today. Absolute bangers. You never know what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna stick with the 2 ISU, but there could be a game in there that maybe is an L.
Tyler, what about you?
I'm gonna go with a 2-1 ISU. I think ISU has a tendency to kind of just int a little while, and they can't really stop themselves from doing it. I think it's gonna punish them one of these games, and I believe in. I worked with Cry now a little bit in the Collegiate Combine series, and I believe in his Zed. I think he's gonna pick Zed one game and pop off, and it's gonna be sick. Probably on red side, so they don't get in the same counter pick.
You know, I'm going against the grain, man. I've got a feeling that UT Austin might be able to do some damage in this series. We've seen some crazy series so far. I want to see some weird picks. I mean, give me more Alawi, but put it mid this time. I don't know, something to spice, something to spice the series up. We've got a little bit of time to kill before we throw it over to the casters. You guys have any final thoughts on how this series might unfold? I know we've talked a lot about it, but I mean, there's just so much to cover with these teams.
Yeah, I think that UT Austin are going to have to get the most out of their red side. I know. Do we know which side the teams are going to be on? I think ISU chose blue.
ISU
right?
blue.
Yeah, I think UT Austin being on red side is going to be actually really valuable. I think red side's really OP right now, and the fact that they're a team that's going to have to rely on having a more unique strategy and some of these cool counter pick or flexes that they can bring to the table. I think they might be able to throw a surprise factor onto onto ISU for game 1. And then if you win game 1 of the BO3, anything can happen really. So I think it all comes down to how unique UT Austin can try and create an advantage for themselves on red side game 1.
Great points, you guys, and I'm excited to see how this series develops. We've got 2 new casters bringing you the action. We've got Roodood, we've got Decerux. Gentlemen, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Dylan. But you said new casters. I need to fix this right now. Grapes, you can't one-up me, bro. You can't one-up me. We got to get that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, Grapes. Bring it, Grapes. Bring it. Now, let's get in the game. I am ready. Illinois State University versus UT Austin. Now, this match, to me, is just going to be pure chaos. Illinois State University. I want to repeat something that Tyler said. Yeah. It's like they can't stop themselves from inting sometimes, but they play for scaling, and they end up getting a lot of these wild upsets. They've just been such a fun team to watch. I haven't seen too much of their collegiate season, but all of the Proving Ground games I watched from them, you know, getting upsets against IMA, against EGP, in series, just getting the games at least. And the wild card thwart that happened during the Open Qualifier number 2. ISU, man, they're a wild team.
They are, and to touch on that again, right? They knocked out Wildcard from getting into the Proving Ground Circuit Qualifier number 2 in those open qualifiers. They knocked them out on that 2-2 match. Winner goes in, loser goes home, and Wildcard, obviously, a former team that have had untold successes in the amateur season. But we're in collegiate, and these guys have been performing throughout the collegiate season and also throughout those regular amateur seasons as well. Coming into this one, I know that we've got a lot of expectations on both of the teams, really. I think that the desk have touched on it, that throughout today as well, the games have been absolutely crazy. There has been action abound on every single series, and for us to assume that this would be a 2-0 to ISU would be probably very naive.
I got to agree with that one because, again, we were talking about chaos and some of the chaos that these teams bring. UT Austin is no different from Illinois State University. If you checked out their bottom lane, they like to take turns who's going to play the Fasting Senna, who's going to play the Heimerdinger. Cry Now has an absolutely stellar Zed that we've seen sometime during the playoffs, both in the Florida State match and the Vespa match. So a lot of potential on the side of UT Austin as they go against Illinois State.
Of course, with this first draft underway, Illinois State blue, UT Austin on the red. There's a lot to be decided because so far we've seen a lot of specials, a lot of Jinx Ornn, and then just we'll see if they can win with the core foundations. And I think so far today it's had a pretty good record. And you touched on those Fasting Sennas at Decerux. They're not going to get the chance in game number 1. Immediately banned away, taken off the board. Rengar, I think, is a staple ban for every single for every single team on either side. If you don't play it, it has to get banned out.
Now, with more bans coming through, I'm keeping a close eye because UT Austin is on the red side. The analyst desk was mentioning it. I did mention it a second ago. The Zed is a very strong pick for Cry Now. He's found a lot of success on it. Also, the Viktor, the Silas, these are 2 other champions that he can do really well with. So I'm excited for that one. I'm kind of hoping it can go through as we get our final bans out of the way.
We've got a lot of ADC pool being pinched, so the Senna taken off the board away from UT Austin, and then Xayah Jinx taken off the table. You may well look toward a Misfortune, Ophelio, something like that, with the AD carry pool being so pinched, but it looks like ISU, they're going to go back to an old comfort pick for GFP. Xin Zhao did get lightly nerfed a couple patches ago, but they still feel like this is their pick to go for, and always is going to have that early game aggression, still has that presence out on the map. I even saw GFP go for a couple level 2 ganks. He's not immune to the Chinese syndrome of ganking.
And this makes me so happy to see GFP here right now because playoffs, it's been a little bit rough for Illinois State University to have their full roster. You know, they didn't have it for I believe the Maryville game. They didn't have it for the Bethany game. They had to have Dat sub in quite a lot. So we had stuff like DrewDozer in the jungle. We had stuff like Nuclear in the jungle, for example. This time, they're going to have their full roster. You know, first picking for that jungle, Xin Zhao locked in for Illinois State. Now looking over at UT Austin, they're locking in the Tristana, and something that has brought YellowBumbleBee a lot of success, that is the Olaf.
And if there's one thing that this composition already tells you from UT Austin, it's that they want to go forward. It's that they want to throw down and get some scraps going. Olaf, very powerful in the early stages. Tristana as well also looks to have a very powerful laning phase. Probably want an aggressive laning support to go alongside that. But ISU, they're throwing down as well. They're saying, okay, you want early laning aggression will lock in this Lucian, and now your support picks generally do get quite contested. I'd have thought that ISU might have gone for something here, like the Nami perchance, but instead they lock in this Viktor blind, taking it away from Cry Now that you touched on was a very powerful pick. And now UT Austin, they've got the option. Do they want to match mid laners before that gets pinched in the second phase, or do they want to grab themselves something very powerful to pair with this Tristana, something like the Lucian, like the Leona, that you, like the Nautilus, like the Leona, really, that you can just go ham with in the bot lane?
What an interesting start to come out from this draft in UT Austin.
Okay.
Cry Now, he's going to play it. He's got his chance. He's on the red side. The Z is going to be locked in. Again, I did say he found success with this against Florida State. He got some pretty solid performances against Vespa with this Z. This is his champion.
And up against the Viktor as well, you know, it's sort of DrewDozer dangling the bait there, saying, hey, do you want to take the Z into this matchup? Because sometimes it can be favourable. I think that if you're playing this Viktor well enough early on, you can play at the sort of the edge of range and keep the Z out of theirs. But Cry Now obviously feels very confident taking this one, and you can see that UT Austin, they immediately ban away some of those powerful supports that pair nicely with the Lucian in this second phase. The Nami that we touched on, the Nautilus as well, going to be taken off the board just as that staple pick in the bot lane. And we've still got top laners to go through as well here, Decerux. There's a lot on the board for both of these teams to try and contest one another. UT Austin have got their choice of whether they go for blind top lane or if they want to counter support, and this will tell me a lot about where the game's going to be played through.
I'm dying to see this right now because it's the bot lane of UT Austin, and it's always the most interesting. We mentioned it earlier, the trading of the Fasting Sen as the Heimerdingers. Well, it's going to be a Lulu, so we are getting that Enchanter over into the bottom lane out of UT Austin.
And this now suggests that you're going to be playing with this Tristana to be a slightly more scaling-oriented pick, because Tristana does have that highest base range at level 18, of course. Level 18 ADCs aren't all too common to come by, but if you do get there with a Lulu in the back pocket, certainly something to be fearful of. And I think that ISU here, very nice, very stable answer. I think that if there's any blind pick that you want to go for, Ornn has proven himself to be incredibly well-founded. The support lock answer, they're going to go for something with engage, with power to take out the Enchanter. Obviously very squishy in these early laning phases. If you do land that hook onto Just Chatting, who's going to be piloting this Lulu, every possibility that they go for the all-in.
Yeah, instantly you got some good viable pick coming out from ISU, as well as the follow-up damage that doesn't need that much econ to really come online. Just having the Lucian alone, you get that mid-game spike, which is so powerful. Team fighting presence with the Ornn, but the roundabout is going to be UT Austin locking in the Gwen.
Okay, so they go for one of the AP answers, I suppose, which was more needed than anything really for this UT Austin squad. Was severely lacking otherwise. They go for the AP answer to the Ornn on the top side. Gwen, very commonly picked up here, just as a, hey, you know what, we'll not particularly interact too much in the laning phase, but we know that come the late game stages, it's going to be a free for all between these two. One's going to have insane team fight damage, one of them's going to have insane team fight pressure in terms of CC and knockups. So a bit of a sit back and relax top lane for their part, but we know that when you have a Xin Zhao and an Olaf locked in, that they're going to try and influence these lanes, be it mid lane, which can be incredibly volatile, be it top lane, which we maybe not expecting, or be it that bot lane where there is a bit of gank setup for ISU.
And this is where it's a little bit exciting, right? Because we were talking a lot about the mid-jungle matchup that's going to be coming down in this. Gluten-free Panda, DrewDozer, you know, already established when it comes to North American amateur scene for what they can do. DrewDozer, that scalar, gluten-free Panda, so aggressive when it comes to the jungle on some picks like Xin Zhao, like Lee Sin. But YellowBumbleBee and Cry Now are the high points of UT Austin on the opposite side of the rift. YellowBumbleBee and Cry Now have both carried games repeatedly. Olaf is one of the big ones. Florida State, I want to point out the scoreline, 13-1-10 on the Olaf. Has put in some phenomenal performances, not afraid to pull out stuff like the Rengar, like the Viego. So strong presence coming out from both of these teams when it comes to their mid lane and jungle duo.
So when we're looking at those picks, and we have an early skirmish composition that has been picked up for both of these two here, really, with EZ and an Olaf, and I think that, you know, the Viktor maybe wants to sit back a little bit more, touted as one of those worst 2v2 picks for the mid jungle, but you have got a Xin Zhao who can obviously facilitate those engages fairly frequently through the early game. Have to keep our eyes on where they look to go for, and of course when you've got this mixed damage of physical and magical damage, which is there for ISU in that mid jungle, you do tend to give just a, you know, a nice synergy between those two. You're always happy to see that mixed damage, means that mid lane are two boots of one kind, be them defensive, and you just have a really tough time trying to take them down. I think that for this game, though, as we talked about the mid jungle being the high point for sort of both of these teams, if we do get to see a Zed pop off, it's going to be fairly exciting to find out and see if that can come through. We've got the Viktor, who will most likely opt into a Zhonya's quite early on if it's getting too scary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Deathmark. What do you got to deal with? What do you got to do to counter it? That's going to be a big thing. DrewDozer historically hasn't had the best laning phases, has always been challenged in that area. So if UT Austin can open up this mid lane, there is so much that can go right for them. Just having this Zed go from lane and try and snowball and go for these dives that a YellowBumbleBee can set up. You do have a lot of potential just by having the Gwen over in the top. You talked about that earlier, but over in the bot lane, so much chaos by just having the Tristana and the Lulu. So much that can back up a lot of those dives that UT Austin will be looking to set up later. But again, it's all about playing through that mid lane and getting Cry Now online.
And if they can utilize maybe some support roams, typically Lulu's not your best roamer, but so long as you can sort of match the roams, I think Nausicääa is quite able and quite liberal to just go for these roams up to the mid lane and potentially try and help out DrewDozer, because you are obviously in a fairly rough matchup. We've seen Cry Now here as we hop onto the Rift, gone for the Ignite, gone for the Electrocute. This is, laning phase to win on Zed, which is pretty much the only way to play him, but it's reaffirmed for us. And if that support roam does come through, I think that just chatting is going to be more so literally there in the supportive capacity as opposed to the enabling capacity that we may well see from Nausicääa.
And now, so starting up into this match, Illinois State University versus UT Austin. Again, this is going to be the 4th place from the Northern Conference, Illinois State University. 3rd place, UT Austin. And for Illinois State University, again, we had talked about it. They've had some great performances when it comes down to playing in the playoffs for the conferences themselves. This is going to be the first time that they have their full roster just starting off right from the get-go. So it's brought up a lot of questions.
Questions of whether or not DrewDozer thinks that these are issues or things that are pushing him to be better. I appreciate the camaraderie, honestly.
Lord, man. You did. Lord of the group. Back when Twitter had fleets, I was watching his like mad because he was posting them almost every hour, just some new meme. There we go. We got to see the boy again.
But look who's mid lane. That's a Forge God.
Oh, I just got duped. All right.
That's kind of cool. I like this from ISU. I mean, they're the ones that have initiated this lane swap. I don't think Disconnector's gone, oh, the Gwen lane's unplayable. Roll swap me. I'm pretty sure this is going to be DrewDozer saying, hey, you know what? I probably prefer playing up against the Gwen here in this one, just so I don't get absolutely bullied. And there's also this possibility that they are obviously going to have the wrong rune choices, at least in terms of those defensive stats that you go for, right? With the Gwen, most likely going to be opting into, well, you know what? They both play magic damage here, so it's probably not the worst things in the world. So, cancel that. Nevertheless, don't want to play against an Ornn as a Zed. It's very hard to kill.
Just by waking up. How do you get ready and focus for a match? This is reminding me of, like, Philosopher Cubby and some of the stuff he says.
Rise and grind. Wake up ready.
Conquer your inner B word. I'll put it that way. Can't say the full line. Got to stay a little bit PG here. But yeah, Disconnector's on the right track. He's waking up. He's ready for battle. He sees his head across the lane, and he doesn't care. He's in the mid lane.
I mean, as an Ornn in this lane, I think that you don't care who you're up against in particular. Just regardless, you're playing Ornn mid. You have done your job. You've effectively, this is playing Anivia, but pre-level 6, where you make sure that the enemy mid laner has absolutely zero fun, and that's what in turn gives you the fun.
A little cheeky flay right there. Now, for this bottom lane, if Naas is able to pop off more, still seeing some more of these little excerpts that players have said.
They're all meme lords, and I absolutely love it.
They're all meme lords indeed. Now, Naas having the flash away over in this bottom lane. Glitterlance going to get a slow on Nuclear, so Nuclear taking a lot of punishment as well. Both of these bot lanes running low on health.
So a few summoner spells have been expended already down here, both of them from Nausicääa, both Flash and Ignite. Remember, he has got the Hex Flash versus the Flash from Naas and the Ignite from Just Chatting. So a little less kill pressure on both sides with no particularly enabling summoner spells on either side. But whenever you've got a Thresh, you do still have to be cognizant that one hook could well spell disaster. And we already have seen now Disconnector. I don't think he's taken a reset yet, but having to use Ornn passive, he just go back, quickly pick himself up a tier, and now he's starting to stack up toward that Thimble.
Still watching the pathing that's been coming out from both junglers. Not much impact coming out from the early game. And not too much to be expected for them on their first clears. There's not really too much they can really play against. Now we're going to get those first recalls coming back in for both junglers. Pressure being applied over on this top lane. That's going to be one of the more brutal things over about this top side, right, Rudy? It's a very long lane, and if you get caught out, especially if you're shoving forward on this Viktor, it can be a death sentence.
Exactly, and DrewDozer on this Viktor is going to be immobile if he gets too far overextended. As you mentioned, the long lane can certainly catch you out. There's a reason he's played in mid lane for a reason. If you are a little bit too overextended, you may well be caught unawares. But I was going to be interested by, you talked on the jungle pathing. We've seen GFP not take his first reset yet, so he opted to look mid lane to try and find a bit of a gank angle. It's not come through, where YellowBumbleBee didn't waste that time, has gone for a crab and then reset already on his second set of camps. And he's going to be slightly ahead of the curve. He's clearing top to bot, his bot lane's pushing in as well, and if Naas and Just Chatting have this recall timing right now, when they come back out onto the map, they're likely going to be able to set up for this initial Drake take, something that Olaf loves to do, get those dragons nice and early. But with this freeze being set up by Nausicääa and Nuclear, and their Olaf is actually, you know, as I say, on the wrong side of the map, them stepping up here is incredibly dangerous because they haven't seen GFP for a while, and as we can see, he's starting to show a bit of presence.
No ward to spot him out just yet. If he walks into the river, you can see that ward right there. Now going to clear it out, Nausicääa. Just a couple more autos. This is going to spark some attention out of YellowBumbleBee to come down here, thinking that might be a gank in the works, and even with the lantern setup, it's not going to be enough to get GFP in there. Still, though, YellowBumbleBee coming towards this side of the map. Gonna watch out, getting a little bit of damage. I'm still watching for that dragon, because that is a big thing that's being contested right here. Now Nausicääa going forward with that Hex Flash. Tries to get the death sentence, goes wide. Now Naas looking to challenge. Looks to hop in onto Nuclear. Gets caught by the axe. So much damage onto Nuclear. That's first blood picked up going the way of UT Austin. They're going to dismantle the bot lane of ISU.
Oh, and this has just been really good pathing now on the top side. Cry now finds the solo kill onto the Ornn of all people. Ignite goes down and the Forge God is no more. Kills all across the board. UT Austin striking first. That first dragon, which I thought was going to be the first real objective secured of this game, is actually the fourth one to go down, as there's 3 other kills there. Really well played by UT Austin to get themselves set up. And this just looks like it's a good wave setup.
How did this unfold right here? Yeah, perfect wave setup, and then just goes off the engage, lands everything spot on the money. That was beautiful from Cry Now.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it in the draft for a reason, Decerux. This guy Zed has been proven through the collegiate scene to be able to pull off these types of things, and I may be a little bit short-sighted in my Zed matchups, thinking that Ornn would be fine through the early levels, and I guess post-level 6, it may not have been the case that it'd be so easy for Disconnector to just sustain up against this Zed.
So the early setup you were wanting for UT Austin, now looking to be challenged from Illinois State as they have moved Nausicääa towards this mid lane over in the bush, now channeling the Hex Flash. This is a tough one to get, though. You need the Shadow Clone to be down. We'll throw it out. And there's the zoning right there. A good use. The Audacious Charge is going to result in a kill in the mid lane for DrewDozer.
Yeah, and they capitalize on the Shadow being down. They're able to go in. It doesn't matter that the hook goes wide. Zoning W from Viktor. You know, people typically, zoning Omega Lul, but that was actually perfectly placed so that he either walks through the slow and gets stunned, or he stays on the wrong side of dodge and gets taken down. So it perfectly executed by ISU. They get a little bit of gold back into their pockets, which was sorely needed up against this UT Austin squad, because their early game snowball potential is definitely very palpable. They have an Olaf on their side, Zed as well, who's a champion which weirdly scales incredibly well into the late game as well, if you can play it effectively, which we know that Cry Now can.
Now challenge coming out of Naas, really putting it into Nuclear. Spot lane duo. Once those cooldowns go down, Nausicääa plays a little bit more melee-esque. You do have some range, but just able to abuse that will be Just Chatting. With Glitter Lance just being ranged onto this Enchanter Lulu. Now looking...
It's just the nature of these Enchanter versus tank support matchups, right? If you don't find that all in, typically the Enchanter's going to start poking you out, going to start whittling you down, and we're seeing that here, that Nuclear about half HP. But it's another one of these situations where they don't see where the jungler is, and they can't force this freeze to be broken. And just really good lane manipulation from Nuclear and Nausicääa to just manifest these advantages seemingly out of nothing. This is just a byproduct of having Tristana on your team. You can't particularly hold a freeze.
Attention for GFP will be on the bot side, while YellowBumbleBee does grab Rift Herald. Now, where's the most prominent place to place this Rift Herald? You know, typically we always look towards the top side of things or the mid lane. I feel like mid lane takes a bit more priority now that you have Cry now on the Zed. Well, now it's going to be top lane since Cry now is moving up there. I feel like freeing him is the bigger objective more than anything for UT Austin.
Typically, you use this mid lane against Victors specifically because it's very difficult to take plates up against a Victor with the wave clear that they have. But with DrewDozer and Disconnector lane swapping time and time again, it's very difficult to know where they want to be placing this Rift Herald. They also have the option of looking at the bot lane if they get a little bit too overzealous again, Nuclear and Nausicääa that is, because if they get a kill or a couple kills down there on the counter gank like we saw for the first couple kills of the game, then you can break open a turret very quickly. You've got Demolitionist Tristana on the bot side. Let's not forget that she takes turrets exceedingly quickly with that satchel charge. The options really are plentiful, but we do see GFP down on the spot side trying to work his way in.
Oof, Nausicääa not doing well with these hooks. Now the counter gank coming in from YellowBumbleBee throws down the axe. The Buster shot pulls gluten-free Pando right out of that fight, but the health bar too low for YellowBumbleBee. Has to take the retreat instead, but yeoun's able to show up over in the bottom lane. Call the Forge God, not going to find its mark in the top side, but no one else going down. Close exchanges all across the map route.
Yeah, a lot of pretty colors, but no actual eventualities come through. Everybody stays alive. And just this sort of air of tension building in the game then as everybody starts to try and make these plays. Nausicääa.
Here we go. Hook comes in. Nausicääa's finally able to find it. Gluten-free Panda will find it on the far side of things. Still a kill picked up for the jungler of Illinois State University. And now the pressure of Illinois State University is focused on this bot side.
Yeah, really starting to amount, and you could see that Naas was trying to pay respect to the potential three-man dive, but the rest of Illinois State, they decide to back away. They take the tempo reset more so than anything else, make sure that they'll be able to get out onto the map without really missing anything. They know they've got a Drake spawning within a minute, so they want to be set up, ready to go for when that one collects itself. And you don't want to be giving UT Austin 2 Drakes too easily. You don't really want to be giving any team 2 Drakes too easily. So they're going to try and set themselves up for this bot side. You can already see that GFP, he's got 2 camps up on the top side, does not care. Drake, higher priority, and with no ultimate on Disconnector as well, this is going to be a really difficult fight for ISU to try and take because they used the Crescent Guard in that last fight down in the bot lane. The box, I think, is just about to come up in the culling as well. So it is a bit of a waiting game toying between these cooldowns as to whether or not they can take a full-fledged 5v5 without those ultis, or if they can wait for long enough for them to come back up.
You can see Illinois State University really trying to set up for this Drake. They did get the early reset onto it about 35 seconds before the Drake spawned, but they didn't exactly have priority on that side. They didn't have vision control on that side, and that's why Nausicääa's taking a very safe route, having a buddy right here in Disconnector with the Ornn to try and gather vision over there, but it is tough. Just Chatting and YellowBumbleBee are defending it with their lives.
yeoun just TP'd down to the bot lane to make a play happen, and this was, severely faster than DrewDozer, but they've not managed to make a play on this window. They had a slight timing on a 5 versus 4. We're still 14 minutes. These advanced TPs didn't, come through. There was no place to go.
Ooh, and engage onto DrewDozer. DrewDozer going to throw down the ultimate, gets a good chunk onto Cry now, but Just Chatting finishes off the job. DrewDozer falls, and now suddenly on uneven ground is Illinois State University.
Yeah, and these Hextech Drakes really do wreck you as well if you stay on them for too long, and you can already see the slight chunks coming through. Dragon started. Here comes the Longhorn.
Here we go. Call the Forge God going to go through. Only gets a knock up onto one. Going after yeoun. He will be able to slide on out as a kill goes through. YellowBumbleBee grab that one, but Naas jumps in and gets destroyed by Nausicääa. But still, the ticking will be found. Nuclear gets dropped in the process. Osen Drake picked up by UT Austin.
Okay, so 2 Drakes and a 1-for-1 is the game state then. UT Austin, they may well be able to look at the mid lane turret as well just before these plates go down. They've got a minute left on those. A little bit overzealous from Naas right there. Has to give a bit of leeway to the damage that ISU can pump out. Unfortunately, it doesn't do so and does fall, but the trade is more than worthwhile, I suppose, when you get these plates as well. Nothing here to be found on yeoun. Has more than enough time to get away with that Lulu. But I like this play from UT Austin. So far in the early game, they've had a very good showcase. They've got Cry now finding solo kills on the top lane on your onto your own tank if you're ISU, making the plays onto DrewDozer as well. Not a bad start.
The only thing we can hope for now for UT Austin is just get that mythic completed on Naas. It is challenged by Nuclear, who has completed his with the Kraken Slayer. For Illinois State University, this is going to be the point where Nuclear starts getting strong really, really fast. This is going to be a good spiking opportunity for him coming on within the next 7 or so minutes.
And with the slight nerfs to the Gale Force as well, Nuclear opting into this Kraken Slayer means that he's going to be dealing an immense amount of damage at the cost of being a little bit safer. So you have to, play a little bit more accordingly with that Thresh Lantern, which I think is a really nice synergy between this build path and the support pick that you've got. Typically you see Thresh with these immobile AD carries. Lucian is not that, but you can still use the Lantern as such.
Disconnector's not even going to chance it. Runs right out. Sees the Zed, sees Cry now. No one wants to challenge him. He's been spot on so far, now coming into the side lane, and it's very hard to stop a Zed, especially when they get a lead and they start getting that side lane control, because they are split push destruction, to say the least.
One of the champions that can not only 1v2, but tend to get away with it and not get killed as well, because of how slippery you can be with resets on your shadow, using the E effectively and getting the outplay potential.
Oh, here we go, looking for the challenge on the DrewDozer. DrewDozer will slip away. GFP standing in the wings. A shuriken almost landing on the DrewDozer. A little bit too close right there. Cry now, the presence on this man.
Testing and, dangling his life again once in front of Cry now. We've got a very low bot lane here.
Ooh, a nice play coming in. Naas now looking to finish off Nausicääa. Nuclear quick with the trigger will take down Naas, and now GFP looking for the dive onto Just Chatting having a rough road, but Cry now is coming around the back, so taking the lantern right out will be ISU.
And it was a really well-timed exhaust from Nuclear to keep his support alive. He exhausts the explosion and the buster shot, which means that his support stays alive. It means that the reset can't come through. It means that Naas dies instead. 1-for-0 down in the bot side. ISU outplaying the 2v2. The little bit of extra presence shown from Crying Out and from GFP ultimately doesn't amount to anything. And instead, it's just that 1-for-0 down on the bot side. ISU continually just finding these slight incremental advantages. No large overall objectives secured with it, but just that slight little injection of gold, which when we come to this dragon, which is going to spawn in 1 minute 42, when we've got that second herald being placed down instead of being taken, because Bumblebee took that in the meantime of all of the action down on that bot side, that little extra gold is going to make the difference.
Knock up onto Cry now looking to challenge with the Call the Forge God. Gonna use the Death Mark to try and slip away, but too many members. It's gonna be a 1-for-1 trade. Over on the top side, UT Austin are still able to get a kill. They will put down the Rift Herald. ISU in the mid lane, looking for a siege there.
Wonder if Naas can get that turret as well, but he's getting collapsed on. We have got this top lane gank to come through, and DrewDozer just a little too far forward. And Olaf, Gwen, not particularly difficult to try and find those kills. It looks like that first tier top turret will go down, and the second one may do as well, with Herald still alive. The mid lane tier 1 is going to fall. That tier 1 bot lane didn't go down. This is a 2-for-1 trade of those turrets, plus the kill. Overall, credit to UT Austin once again. They are coming out ahead on these trades. This Olaf 2-0-1 currently in the game. More farm, just constantly pacing himself very well, knowing exactly where to be and being incredibly efficient with his time.
And that lane just got so much longer for DrewDozer. I'll have to try and stay he'll have to try and stay safe, to say the least. He's going to need a lot of vision over on that top side.
That's that stopwatch.
Not get hopped on too much. Looking for silver linings for Illinois State University. They were able to grab the mid lane tower, so they can open up vision quite a bit more. The wave that is pushed is the top side, which is Baron side. It sucks, but at least you can still have presence for Baron. Now UT Austin are looking to contest for this Drake. Watch Cry now. He's going to be a big member here, looking to challenge onto Bumblebee. Bumblebee will be the first one to fall. Will be picked up by the Xin Zhao, but Cry now returns fire on the GFP. And Disconnector getting isolated from the team. Nausicääa comes in with the hook, but it will go wide once again. It will be a 1-for-1 exchange. Jungler for jungler. The Illinois State University still holding priority on this Drake, Rood.
They've got control of the river, they've got the Scuttle Crab, and most importantly, they've got better zoning tools. Viktor, Gravity Well can zone off about 3 or 4 people at a time to cut off one choke.
Ooh, Hourglass will be used. Call the Forge God going to be popped, but it lands onto nothing. 1 kill going through as Nuclear is able to grab it, but it will be another 1-for-1 trade. Top laner for support, but the big thing here, ISU were able to get the Drake.
Incredibly important that they stop Soul Point, that they secure themselves the objective for the first time here in these 50-50 scenarios. And that is a complete flip. That is as honorable as it gets. No junglers, 4v4 involved with neither of your smites available. We'll take those every day of the week, honestly, on the Academy stream, because those are the types of plays that sort of forge you and get that mental really going in your benefit. Yeoun currently on the Gwen, actually having a very standout game, playing team fights really nicely back to front and causing a lot of chaos so far for ISU. Going to be able to collect this bot lane tier 1 turret. There's no chance that GFP can, let alone get here, let alone defend if he was there. An extra gold injected into the Gwen, who so far has been, I feel like, a bit pushed by the wayside. Has got, a kill on that top lane when YellowBumbleBee came to help out onto DrewDozer, but hasn't been a particular standout in this game just yet. Could be at the team fights.
Ooh, a good chunk of damage coming out of Nuclear. Seeing that build start to come online as Naas punishes Nausicääa. Nausicääa, I will say, I haven't been the most impressed by Nausicääa's Thresh so far in this game. A lot of those hooks have been just way off the mark. There have been some pretty spot-on plays in terms of decision-making to initiate plays, but just the death sentences alone, Nausicääa looks uncomfortable on this champ.
And those can be some incredibly impactful cooldowns as well, right? Those are the game-changing abilities. You talk about them all the time that, an Orianna Shockwave, things like a Thresh Death Sentence, they can be right up there. The amount of times we've seen games won and lost off the back of a Thresh hook, definitely, up in the hundreds at this point. So hopefully we get to see Nausicääa nail a couple more, and maybe it's just a UT Austin having absolute fancy feet, because at the end of the day, if you've got the fancy shoes, sometimes you just feeling it. Don't get taken down, but we're at this mid-game point now at Decerux, honestly nearing on towards what we would have called late game in the KL game when I'm counting up to 16, but we've got 2 Drakes to 1. Important to take stock of where we are and sort of what team is going to be functioning better as we get later into this game. Obviously, we've got an incredibly late game top side from ISU where they've got this Ornn Viktor setup of just 2 team fight members which can absolutely go to town on largely anyone. But then we look at the ability to dive into the backline and take down DrewDozer. He's already gone into the stopwatch plus completed Zhonya's now at this point, recognizing that he's going to get dove on. There's an Olaf, Tristana, Zed, Gwen, all jumping into his face, trying to take down this Viktor and make his life a misery. The execution of these team fights is going to be incredibly important, because if the assassins and those bruisers can deep dive onto Nuclear, onto DrewDozer, there's only one lantern to go between them.
Absolutely. And another thing to point out, Nuclear just got his 2-item spike, finished the Lord Dominic's Regard, so now at a big point as he's going to look to challenge with that, forces out the Lulu ultimate in the process, so showing you just how strong this mid-game Lucian can be.
And going for these types of fights is incredibly risky at this timing, right? We touched on the timer, 21 minutes. You go for that play and you die, that could very well start up Baron for the enemy team. I'm always a fan of, hey, 2 minutes before an objective comes up, just chance you're on, throw some cooldowns out, because likelihood is they're going to be up in time for that Drake take. But when you've got the Baron ready, those concerns tend to go away.
Ooh, he wants it. Nuclear's going to hop in with that relentless pursuit at any given time he sees Naas alone, or anyone who can be poked out and punished.
Yeah. The way we've seen it, it looks like it'll be anyone that looks relatively alone. Doesn't have to be Naas. Doesn't have to be any one target in particular. Just see hero solo, kill hero.
It's the power of the Lucian in the mid game. He is at that spicy point now. Even if it wasn't the best early game to get there, you're starting to see what kind of damage this Lucian can do. Just all the abilities it has, constantly proccing that passive with the double up. Does a lot of damage that Naas has to respect. We still have 50 seconds for the next Drake spawns onto the map. I'm going to be watching that for the next teamfight timer.
Yeah, because if we look at the item differential, you hit on Nuclear having hit that 2-item spike, and we look at Naas on the flip side, his second item currently is a longsword, so there's a distinct difference. Naas needs to get a reset in, because you can imagine that he sat on a lot of gold. This isn't, the sum total of this Tristana's resources, but we're coming up to 30 seconds on the respawn of the Drake, and all of the pressure, all of the vision from both teams largely had been placed around that Baron. But neither team has put any attention down onto this bot side. Naas is now looking to try and get a reset. We'll have to see if there's a second item.
Oh, able to land into that sentence. It's going to be on the support. Just Chatting caught out. Call the Forge God goes through. Just Chatting gets dropped, and a knockup comes out from Disconnector. Ragnarok forced. YellowBumbleBee on retreat. Yeoun not in the best place to be, but here comes Cry now looking to come in with the death mark. Gets exhausted in the process. Now GFP looking to hunt him down. Will find the charge. Going after Yeoun. Gets cut down by Yeoun, but Nuclear's doing work on the opposite end of things. Now looking for one more knockup to get the ace. It is found. Nausicääa finally finds the hooks. It's gonna get an ace for Illinois State University.
And they take their timing perfectly, Decerux, before the resets can come through, before those items are purchased. ISU take the peak window to take a 5v5, and they do it beautifully. 4 members still alive. This Baron on the board, they do not care for a second dragon. They want the big purple worm. There are still 4 turrets outside of the base. If they can get this Baron, if they can get back to base safely without losing anyone here, they've got a ton of economy turrets to go and collect.
Now, Baron power play for Illinois State University. I really want to point out Nausicääa in this one. We were just criticizing Nausicääa for the hooks, but finally, when Nausicaa is able to find them, they mean so much.
Yeah, the one there sets it up. That green ward that you can see just in the lane, I'm not sure if it's set up for this play, but just good intuition either way. There's a good lantern setting up there as well, and the exhaust from Nuclear just destroys Cry now. Means that he can't particularly do anything in that fight. And just when you think that yeoun, maybe he's got the chance to come in, make the highlight Gwen pentakill play, no. Flash, hook, synced with the knock-up. Very well played. ISU just playing exquisitely in that fight.
I love it from Nausicaa, landing 3 death sentences and a flay in that single fight to give ISU the win. Now ISU having this Baron power play. The response out of UT Austin is still going to be the split push, sending Cry now to the bottom lane. If anyone does contest him, he still has that Ignite. He's not a teleport split pusher, so he can't get there for the team fights. But if he gets challenged, that's the one thing he's hoping for.
Yeah, and I think that this just means when you've got DrewDozer with TP, you just want to force on the top side here. You have just Disconnector who can tank up turrets for time. Diving isn't particularly a concern for you, and even if you do lose out on that Ornn, you don't particularly care. So long as DrewDozer can sit here, buff up some cannon waves, he's opting to, or he should be opting to just not die. Doesn't particularly have to interact with Cry now necessarily. But he's got 2 items matching the Zed's 2 items. Has that Zhonya's a level lead as well. I don't even know that Cry now wins in this side lane at the minute.
Setting up for the siege over in the top side. Baron empowered wave crashing into the tower right now. 4 strong as UT Austin. Cry now far away from his squad. Again, does not have teleport. He's committing to the split push. You see the ping right now. He's headed down to that bottom lane, but you can see the fear as the engage has been called from UT Austin. They're going after Nuclear. Nuclear going to return fire, gets knocked up by the Lulu ultimate as the Call of Forge God goes right through, using the calling, is able to pick up some.
Naas
looking to back off. Naas will be able to get the kill onto the back line of Nuclear, but the rest of UT Austin are in flames as they get chased down by DrewDozer. He will bulldoze right through them for a double kill as Illinois State University will claim all but Cry now.
And it's another hook to start it all off. Nausicääa finds the play onto yeoun, and he thinks that that's the window to go, but they don't have the members. Cry now still sat here, has got everything available, but in a 1v3 up against a Baron and so much CC ready to go, there's just nothing to do. This inhibitor turret's going to fall. Whether or not they go for the inhib, looks like they won't. The respawn's just about to come up, but they've achieved their goal here. ISU, they've broken open the base with 20 seconds left on that Baron. Now look at the minimap here. This is the important part. DrewDozer doesn't even TP at this point. It's just how far away the difference of these mid laners is. And an incredible hook once again from Nausicaa. Not this one, the second one, which keeps Nuclear alive for just long enough and catches Naas out. Cleanse is just a second too late. Yes, they trade the autos, but it gives the timing. Gives the timing, Decerux, for that auto trade to come back from Nuclear. And then DrewDozer, as you said so eloquently, just rambunctiously driving through everybody, takes them all down, and well, an absolute wipe on the top side for ISU.
This is prime positioning for ISU. They are in the right place. They got the gold on the right people. As they set up for the sieges, you have an inhibitor tower down in the top lane. You still have inner towers available for UT Austin in the mid and in the bottom lane. And for Illinois State University, they want to grab those inner towers. So they're going to be setting up vision into this jungle and look to rotate between these 2 lanes.
And when you don't have that top inhibitor down, it does make it a little bit more difficult. That pressure from the super minions just isn't present. But overall, if they can collect these turrets in the window, they're trying to make sure that they've got complete bot side control so that they can default back to the dragon at pretty much a moment's notice. We've got 90 seconds on that respawning, and it's one of those where if you can control this bot side of the jungle, another hook. Okay, it's not going to mean anything.
Oh, but here comes UT Austin looking for the engage, able to get the knock-up thanks to Lulu ultimate, but fire is being returned. YellowBumbleBee able to grab one. Nausicaa looking to run out of there, but the Ragnarok is calling for retreat. Knocked him into the air as YellowBumbleBee. Will he get squashed? Disconnector is trying to finish the job. He will be the fly swatter as YellowBumbleBee goes to the ground, and now the rest of UT Austin, 4 members alive. It was a 1-for-1 trade, but Illinois State University are the ones in better position. They will continue the siege.
And this was a jungler for mid lane trade. Typically, you'd favor UT Austin in this state, but Disconnector still full HP. Absolutely fine to stand in the front line and protect everybody. They may well be able to take this inhib turret. Hook hits again. Not going to find anything, though. It's onto Cry now, not onto Naas.
Oh, interesting play coming out here. Cry now will find the assassination. It's on to Nausicääa, and this is a very staggered death timer. This is something UT Austin can work around because look at the dragon timer. It's coming up in 35.
Now, they do have to face check everything. Remember what I was saying, that they don't have any vision around this spot side. This was controlled largely by ISU, whilst they were trying to take those two choices on vision.
Oh, they got another one. UT Austin have just staggered 2 death timers. This dragon, it is soul point, Rude.
It's not just the dragon either, Decerux. Look at the Baron timer. 45 and DrewDozer spawns in 43. There's 4 seconds. The overlap between those two where DrewDozer can start to run. They're going to get mid-tier 1. They are optimizing right now what they can get. Somebody needs to base to hold that top lane. You can see yeoun has got teleport, doesn't mind going back to defend against the inhib. They can get this Drake. If they can go up to the Baron as well, they've got a lot of time to work with. They're going for, you know, the cake. Let's see how much of it they can eat.
Is he gonna? GFP, he wants it. He's going in, but he's getting charged by Cry now. Not gonna happen. Dragon Soul for UT Austin. And Rude, we've had game 3 after game 3 after banger after banger. And the final series of the day, it's looking to keep the theme going.
And I couldn't be happier, honestly. You know, when you're here for one series, they better make it a good one. And Nuclear, the rest of ISU, UT Austin, everybody is doing their part right now. We have got that Baron spawning, and I got a little overconfident, a little bit overzealous, saying that UT Austin may look to go for that one off the back of the Drake and the death timer on DrewDozer as well. But the Ocean Soul is a very big win. This is a permanent buff that is going to keep them sustained, topped off through these team fights. And the way that these team fights have been going as well, they've been very slow, very drawn out. There have been multiple procs of an Ocean Soul that could have come through in previous times, but in this game specifically, I think that they were going to see a lot of value from it. When you have things like a Lulu, the Moonstone on that as well, it's even more added healing coming down. And we look at the items coming through from ISU, we've got a Bramble Vest on the Ornn and an Executioner's Calling on your jungler. Well, that may not matter if they can just sneak the Baron here. This is a big lapse from UT Austin.
Has been spotted out, scried out, UT Austin walking into this direction. You can't get there. YellowBumbleBee, he doesn't have flash, he has Ghost. He's taking that Summoner spell and will be isolated. Disconnector looking to get a little bit more damage on the YellowBumbleBee, but Baron has been acquired 30 minutes into this game. Illinois State University, it is a Baron versus a Dragon Soul.
So let's see what ISU can get with it. If they break open that top inhib, that tends to be the first place that you'd look to just to get a sort of pseudo pressure point coming across the map. They don't have to break open a turret either. They can just work in, use the minions to do it. They're going to go for the mid lane here, try and break open another turret and then resort to top afterwards. And they can just walk in.
You Cry now, he's coming on the flank, just chatting, goes down, but that is not a priority target. It's Cry now is going to jump in with the death mark, goes after the backline. DrewDozer putting down the Zonias. Now Disconnector looking for the knockers up. Nausicääa doing work, DrewDozer doing even more as they'll take down 4 of UT Austin and take the team fight win for game number 1 of the best of 3 of this series.
Ocean Soul be damned, Decerux. They will take the fight. They will take the game as well. Unless Naas can pull off some absolute heroics, DrewDozer going to say no to that.
There it is, Illinois State University. This is the way they play, man. This game number 1, they always got to inch just a little bit. They can't help it, but they come back for the dub. And what a way to start off the best of 3 of this series.
Yeah, I mean, game number 1 really delivered. Soul going one way, 2 Barons going the other, and action plentiful in this game. Credit to both sides for what was a really entertaining game number 1. And like we say, if the Academy streamers showed us anything today, it's that just because one game goes one way, does not mean that the game 2 is going to do the same thing.
And what a trip that game was. You know, Dragon Soul picked up by UT Austin. Team fights going both ways. It was a back and forth slobber knocker. You got to give a lot of credit over to how Illinois State University knew where their strong point was, because the moment they got to that mid-game spike, they kept playing to it a lot. They kept playing towards that, and they got online, they got more gold, and they were able to make these plays. But again, credit to UT Austin on the opposite side of things, because they chose their fights very intelligently to make this such a close match.
It was just the powerful team fighting in the end, just so concise, so well controlled as a pack in that last team fight. You've got DrewDozer plus Nuclear stacked on top of one another. Getting Zed or Gwen into that fight was so incredibly difficult. Nausicääa stepped up when they needed to the most, had that box ready, just any form of zone control down to keep the carries alive. And when the pincer maneuver came in from UT Austin right there, I was fearful. I was like, okay, Gwen's got the needle work. We've got Cry now with the Zed shurikens. He's going to do absolute work, but ultimately it just was not the case. And the core of the ISU squad was able to stay alive, stay firm, and they got themselves that win.
All right, so I want to see what the analyst desk has to say about this one, because again, two chaotic teams. I'm just dying to see the feedback after we saw Coach Tyler and TJ break down the start of this game. So we're going to throw it over a short break. When we return, the analyst desk will break down the first game. Actually, we're going straight to desk, excuse me on that one, of this first game of ISU versus UT Austin.
Tyler, my man, you called it. Oh my God, we come out of the gate swinging in game one. That was insane. I mean, banger after banger after banger on the twitch.tv/academy stream. I'm your host, Dylan MLBD, joined by TJ and Tyler, of course, to break down all the action in game one. And lads, we got to start with the draft. We've been starting with the draft all day. It's, it's where the fun happens. And this was definitely a little bit of a boring draft, but we had that spicy Zed pick. TJ, what are your thoughts on this draft overall?
I think it was interesting how ISU kind of slammed the Lucian pretty early, and then also pretty early on responded with Viktor into the Zed. I'm not really too happy with that one. It's all right. The Zed obviously was quite exciting because we saw some pop-off plays, and it definitely throws a bunch of chaos into the game. We did see the lane swap come out. I think that was actually favorable for ISU, but he still got the solo kill. Like the Zed still killed the Ornn. So I would like to see maybe some less like variance from ISU there, where if we're going to swap the lane, maybe don't die to it. Other than that, I would say I think that ISU maybe gave up a little bit too much. They didn't have to, because I think UT definitely has some win conditions here if ISU doesn't play a very clean game. And I think that they can avoid that in the future by maybe not showing all their cards early.
Yeah, I mean, I would even have a different take for UT Austin now going into than what I did going into the series. I actually think that UT Austin, if ISU is going to draft how they did this game, I think UT Austin could just get their draft advantage with also good scaling. Like I don't see any reason. I don't understand why the Xin Zhao came in through first pick or the Lucian bottom, blind bottom Lucian. Just like I just don't really get it. Like the draft seemed kind of weird to me. So I think that maybe UT Austin can keep their picks of as the tweet comes through from the dude. That's a legendary tweet.
Wow, maybe Drew should do a little less goofing around on Snapchat, then maybe he could win lane. And I
That's
mean,
elite.
you were pointed out while we were watching the game, Tyler. DrewDozer definitely slow to come online in that game. It felt like, the first two dragons were claimed by 12 minutes. You were saying Soul by 22, 23 minutes, and DrewDozer might only be 1.5 items. And obviously turned it around, had a great impact in those fights. And
yeah, the third dragon that ISU was able to acquire actually was pretty illegal. They got it off of that like I don't understand, and they had no items. They had no business getting this dragon, and then they're facing a soul point at 24 minutes, and that's really scary when your core carry Viktor is going to be doing all the damage in these fights. Will have 1.5, maybe barely 2 items if he farms really well or gets some kills. And I thought that ISU was actually in position to lose that game for sure. Despite the Zed being relatively not that useful towards later on in the game, they had a great snowball going with a composition that had great answers for what ISU brought to the game early on.
Yeah, let me pick your guys' brain with some clips that we've outlined from this game. TJ, let's start with you. 5 minutes in, there was a gank in the bottom lane. What happened here?
So I think it's a little bit disappointing from ISU here. We see that GFP is in the bush. Obviously, they're trying to set up a gank. They have a slow push going out. It is a little bit overforced. The play kind of expires here, like it's over. Lo and behold, the Olaf is bot. How could we have guessed? There's no way to know, guys. Object permanence doesn't exist. And then as soon as the Xin Zhao does leave, We kind of, again, overforce into a death. And a lot of people would call this unlucky, but I would say this is just an unnecessary risk where it's very predictable to know that Olaf could be here. So I'd like to see maybe some cleaner play from ISU, maybe respecting the fact that this is happening. And I think that can come from an in-game shot caller where it's like, hey, we know that Olaf is here based on it being this time in the game and based on this starting jungle position. That sounds really complex in 5-head, but I promise it's not. Like that's pretty simple. So I'd like to see more fundamentals in the next games, so that my 2-0 prediction doesn't look dumb. Like, come on, ISU.
I mean, I definitely agree, right? Jungle tracking is something that shouldn't be too difficult, and it felt like that was just a lapse in judgment from ISU. And obviously, they came back, and part of their comeback in that game was sort of a mid-game 22-minute team fight. And Tyler, sort of walk us through what happened during this replay.
Yeah, so I mean, this team fight was just honestly UT Austin just kind of getting caught. They're trying to do their setup for Dragon, and they're getting their recalls off, but just choosing some lazy recalls, and UT Austin instead just tries to take the fight anyway with the Lulu being picked. They could try and wait and play it off, but the fight kind of diverges in 2 different directions, where Viktor is relatively untouched this entire time. Also, Nuclear getting a lot of damage off without dying because the threats are gone. Gwen is on the other side fighting, and it just turns into disaster, absolute disaster for UT Austin when they're in a position where they can still win the game, and they all die, they lose Baron, and at that point the ISU's online. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the kind of fight where it just flips the entire game, right? And obviously, TJ, final fight of the game, 31 minutes. The game at this point is still actually quite close, but ISU just picked up the Baron, and how did this game end?
Yeah, so I mean, when ISU is here at this point with Baron, with Viktor late game, it becomes pretty hard for UT to win because how do you find an angle here? What is your engage? It has to be coming from flanks, which they do actually do, but unfortunately we have the Lulu caught before the flank occurs, and so ISU just does a bunch of damage to UT before UT hits them back. It results in an exhaust on Zed. Zed can't create any advantages, and then ISU just kind of wins. Kind of a disappointing ending, especially because U of T was doing the right thing, where they were diving in with the flanks. It just was unfortunate that Lulu got caught. So I would have liked to see a little bit more respect, and maybe there could have been a different fight there where ISU doesn't just win the game. I'm assuming that they probably would have won based on the position, but it wouldn't have been like a disappointing end like that.
Yeah, it's always one of those scenarios, right? That's why you see champs like Thresh, Blitzcrank, Nautilus sometimes picked into these enchanters, because one well-aimed skill shot and the enchanter's just gone, right? We saw 2 or 3 team fights where Lulu's just a non-factor, and call that great hooks from Nausicääa, call that poor positioning from UT Austin, but it ended up happening in ISU game 1, victory for them. One quick thought from each of you on what should happen in game 2.
yeah, I'll go first, I guess. I think UT Austin had a great game plan. They had some strong counter picks. I think the Gwen looked really impressive, and I think bot duo. I think they had a great answer for the Lucian, the Lucian Thresh that ISU wanted to play. So I think just in general, if they can find a way to get slightly better scaling in these team fights, or maybe some better engage. It seemed like they were really lacking on options for them to choose fights. It was more just ISU if they were in position and got caught out by like the Zed or Gwen getting a large advantage in the side lane, that were able to find like those leads. If they can draft a bit more engage, potentially ditch the Lulu for like a Nautilus or Leona, or like a good support counter pick there that they're able to acquire some engage off of and give them some opportunities to choose fights when they're in a strong position, I think that'll be really good for them.
All right, you heard it here first. Any changes in your guys' predictions after the game 1 win?
Absolutely not.
All right, we're sticking with ISU. Let's get back into the game. Decerux, Roodood, take us through game 2.